Okay, so good morning.
Is being recorded.
Good morning. Today's daf is daf Kaftet. We are at the very bottom of Kafchet Bet, and in fact, the last line of Kafchet Bet. And let me share my screen. What we've done right now is we shared yesterday. We had a Mishnah, and the Mishnah had said that when someone is being taken out to be executed, we treat the person with the stringencies of the living and the dead. So what does that mean? So if that person is a Kohen and his non-Kohen wife, she would no longer be able to eat truma because we're going to assume that he's dead, right? The only reason that she can eat truma is because she's married to the Kohen, and now we have to treat him as if he's died, and so as a result, she doesn't have the ability to eat truma. And on the other hand, let's say she was the daughter of a Kohen. So if her husband, who's a non-Kohen, were to be dead, so then she would not be allowed to eat truma. But if he's alive, if her husband was dead, she would be allowed to eat truma because she'd go back to her father's house, assuming that they don't have children, and she'd be allowed to go back and eat truma as part of her father's household. But if in fact he's alive, well, then she's married to a non-Kohen, and the non-Kohen that she's married to tells us that she's not allowed to eat truma. So in both cases, in one case we assume the husband is dead, in one case we assume the husband's alive, but in both cases the wife ends up not being able to eat truma. And then Rav Yosef, so that was what our Mishnah said. And our Rav Yosef qualified our Mishnah by saying it was talking about a Jewish Beit Din, meaning when is it that we assume that if there's been a decision that a person is going to be taken out to die, that we treat him with the stringencies of both being alive and being dead? That's if it was a Jewish court that sentenced him. And we can understand why, because a Jewish court is concerned that maybe he'll still be alive. And so as a result, that's why we need to treat that with the stringencies of maybe he's alive. And of course, at the same time, if he's supposed to die, he's going to be killed. So we treat him with the stringencies of somebody who's going to be killed. On the other hand, when it comes to a non-Jewish court, the Rav Yosef says that we're going to just assume that in that situation, he's going to be killed because they are presumably less careful about whether or not there's a last minute item that will cause him to stay alive. And we'll say, we're just going to cause him to die. And indeed, as we mentioned yesterday, there's a requirement that there be a guy on the horse with essentially something to wave in his hands so that he can get everybody's attention if in fact a basis to not kill the guy comes out of the court, so that they can quickly change the approach so that they can hopefully save the person if a basis to save him has been developed. So that was yesterday. Now we're going to offer an alternative view that's essentially the exact opposite. So let's take a look and we'll see exactly what that means. So Ikadamri, there is another view. This is the Aleph Dalet, fourth word abbreviation into the word. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is going to offer the following: Lo shanu ella bebeis din shelo dikuchavim. When do we say that we have to treat somebody as possibly alive and possibly dead? That's in connection with a non-Jewish court. And again, we understand the reason, because on the one hand, we're concerned that maybe they are going to kill the guy, but on the other hand, maybe he's going to come up with a sufficient bribe that will save his life. So that we can understand why we might be concerned that maybe he's actually still alive. And certainly, if you watch the movies, almost every movie in which begins with somebody being taken out to be killed, usually somebody comes in and rescues them. So, all right, Aval beveis din shel Yisrael. But when it comes to a Jewish court, Kavan denafak lei dina l'katala. Once the person's been sentenced to death, katlilei. So then we're going to kill the guy. So Tosos asks the obvious question. I don't understand. Tosos says, so Apagav, well, actually, Tosos goes straight into an explanation. Apagav the Amr Sanhedrin. If we take a look at the top Tosos, Kaptan Aleph, even though we say in Sanhedrin on Daf Mem Bet Amr Bet, Shahaya Echad Rochiv al Sus, that we have, as I've mentioned, this guy sitting on the sword, on the horse, and he the Sudran Biyado, and he's got this flag in his hand. Matzolo Zchus Haya Hala Manif Besudrin Mikoma Besudrin. And if in fact an approach that would allow the person to not be killed is found, he comes and he hurries and he waves the flag. So Mikomakom Loshkia. Nonetheless, it's still not common. So the point is that this, according to this view, even though we do set up that protection, that setting up that protection is different from being concerned about whether or not there's a chance that he's going to live. And so as a result, even though we set it up just in case, you can have a presumption that the person is killed. So Amrle Abaye, again, citing the same positions that we cited yesterday, just now in the opposite direction. Based in Shal Yisrael, Nami, if Efshar Dechazu Le'Zechusa. 1 second, isn't it possible? You just said that we're going to assume that if it's a Jewish court, that the guy's going to be killed, and therefore only the stringencies associated with death would apply. But isn't there a possibility that the court will overturn their decision and acquit the guy? No. So the Gemara answers no. Ki chazu le'zechusa mikamei delig mardina. No, our judges are smart enough that if there's going to be a basis to acquit the guy, it'll come before they finish the decision. Basag mardina tu lo chazu le'zechusa. If in fact it's afterwards, so then there's not going to be any kind of basis to clear the guy. Now, if you say that, well, then why bother with this guy on the horse? So Rashi helps us understand. Kolomar, not that it, Rashi says in the top Rashi on Kaftarim and Aleph, not that it means that it's absolutely not ever going to happen and that isn't even a theoretical possibility. Rather, Kolomar, it means to say, lo shchiach, not common. And as a result, we're not going to say that there's a doubt about it. We're not going to say that maybe the guy is still alive. So that is the approach. So now again, the two sources that we brought yesterday as a challenge, now we're going to say that maybe they are support for Rav Yosef's statement. And one now can understand why we have this conflicting views of what Rav Yosef said, because you can have the same conversation in two different directions. And so let's take a look and see how the conversation flows. So I'm sorry. So lema misayele. So let's say that the following, as this was a Mishnah in Makot Dafa Zayin Amud Aleph, let's say that supports Rav Yosef's current version of his ruling, namely that when you have a Jewish court, we presume that the guy's going to get killed. But when you have a non-Jewish court, maybe the person's still alive. So whenever two witnesses in Israel stand up and say that we testify about this certain person, that in this particular court they reached a conclusion that he was sentenced to die, and the following two people were the witnesses, that person is going to get killed. So we see that a sentence in a Jewish court is a final sentence, and there's no chance of reversal. So Dilma Boreach Shiny, yes, it is consistent with Rav Yosef's statement, but it's not a proof of Rav Yosef's statement, because maybe somebody who runs away might be presumed to be somebody who was actually guilty, whereas, as is often said, right? I mean, that's again to focus on literature and movies and the like. If you run away from the police, they're going to presume that you're guilty. So too here, if you run away from a verdict that maybe we're going to presume that you're guilty, but in fact, in an ordinary case, maybe we wouldn't. And so as a result, Rav Yosef's statement is not actually a proof, is not proved by this approach. Okay, so now we're going to come up with another approach. So Tashma Shama mi Beis Din Shel Yisrael Shahayu Omrim Ish Ploni Meis Ish Ploni Nerag. If somebody hears from a Jewish court that a certain person was died or a certain person was killed, Yasiu Es Ishto, that person's allowed to marry the guy's wife. Mikuman Trisin Shalom de Kochavim. But if you hear from an executioner, a non-Jewish executioner, so then Ish Ploni Meis, Ish Ploni Nerag, the same statement that somebody was killed, somebody died, or somebody was killed. Al Yasiu as Isha, you're not allowed to marry that Jew's wife. Why? So my mace, so my nerag. What does it mean to say that the person died and the person was executed? So elam mace mamish or nerag mamish. If you say that the person was actually died or actually executed, the kavase gabi ovde kochav. And when it comes to the non-Jews, amai al yasiu as ishto. Why shouldn't you be allowed to marry the guy's wife? Hakaim alan. We have the following rule. So kol meisiach lefi tumo heimenu menule. That anytime a non-Jew speaks without understanding the ramifications of what they're saying, that they're not they lefi tumo, that sort of in an innocent manner is the literal explanation. So then we believe the person. So elalav meis yotzei lumus. When we say that the person's dead, we mean that he's going out to die. When nerag, when we say that he's been killed, means yotzei le'areg. It means that he's going to be executed, and that therefore, when what we're really saying is exactly like Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says that when it's in a Jewish court, if you say the person's going to get taken out to killed, we assume he's dead. And when it comes to a non-Jewish court, when you say he's taken out to be killed, you don't assume that he's dead. Isn't that exactly what this brisa is coming to show? So the Katani, the based in Yisrael, shall Yisrael, Yasiu es ishto, exactly. And the point is that when it comes to a Jewish court, we say that you can marry the wife. That shows that we assume that the person who's been sentenced to die in a Jewish court is as if the person's dead. We presume he's dead. So no, la'olam meis mamish. We can really say that in fact we're talking about somebody who actually died, nerag mamish, and somebody who was actually killed. And when you ask about the non-Jews and say, what about when them? Amai lo? Why don't we believe them? And because we say, after all, that we believe somebody who speaks innocently, even if they're not Jewish, when we say that we believe them, but that's when they don't have a stake in the matter. But here they have a stake in the matter. Here they do have a stake in the matter. We do have to be worried that maybe they're going to be lying. And as we saw yesterday, at the end of the day yesterday, what's the lie? What's the concern? The concern is that maybe they're going to want to show how they are a court that is willing to kill somebody, and that they're all about law and order. And so they want to emphasize that. Okay, so that is the conclusion of the last Gemara, and now we bring us to the next Mishnah. And the next Mishnah and the next two Mishnayot will deal with somebody where the messenger, unfortunately, gets sick on his way to deliver the get. And we discussed whether or not, in that circumstance, he's allowed to appoint a shliach. No surprise, he will be allowed to appoint a shliach. But the question is how does he do so, and are there any special rules? So we'll first deal with the situation of a get brought within Eretz Yisrael, because that's a situation where you don't need to say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. You don't have to say it was written and signed in front of me. So let's take a look. So hamevi get Eretz Yisrael. If you bring a get from within Eretz Yisrael, so v'chala, and then the person who's the messenger becomes sick, harei zeh meshalcho b'yad acher. He can use another messenger. So that's totally fine. V'im amarlo. But if the husband said to the messenger, "Totally hemeno chayfetz ploni, please bring back for me this particular item that I have, that the wife is holding, that belongs to me," lo yishachana biyad acher. Then, sorry, you cannot go and send the get with somebody else. Because the bottom line is that if I send you to go get something from my wife, I have trusted you to watch the object that you are going to get. And as a result, there is an element of responsibility that I'm giving you that is on some level greater than the regular responsibility of just bringing something from one place to another. And so as a result, especially because it belongs to me, and so as a result, I don't want you to just appoint somebody else because maybe I don't trust that person. And so that's the key difference between those two cases. So if in fact the husband wants something brought back for him from the wife, well then the messenger is not going to be able to appoint an agent. So let's take a look and see how the Gemara deals with this and asks the question, we're going to have a statement that seems to be obvious. So let's take a look and see what that statement is. So Amar Rav Kahana Chalatnan, that our Mishnah is talking about somebody sick. Now, the implication is that only somebody sick and not somebody who isn't sick would be allowed to appoint. Well, Pshita Chalakatani, it's obvious. Our Mishnah specifically says that we're talking about somebody who got sick. So Mao the Tema, what might I have thought? Maybe the same thing applies even if the person didn't get sick. And that which we learned about somebody who's sick, we're just talking about a typical kind of case. And so as a result, Kamash Malan, so that's why Rav Kahana is specifically saying that when we say chala, that we say that he became sick, it means that it's only in that case. All right, so Heichidami, how does this all happen? So what kind of situation, meaning what did the husband say that will allow us to appoint the first messenger to appoint a second messenger? Okay, so Ida Amrle Holech, if the husband had just said to the messenger, listen, please take this to my wife, well then Afal Gavdalo Chalanami. Well, look, all he told me, the messenger, was to take it. He didn't say anything about the messenger playing an essential role. And so as a result, why can't the messenger even appoint another messenger, even if he didn't become sick? The Ida Amrlay Adholech. And if the husband told the messenger specifically, you take it, well then Afilu Chalanamilo. Well then if the messenger became sick, maybe even in that situation, he shouldn't be allowed to appoint another messenger because the husband told specifically he wanted this guy to take or this woman to take the get and not somebody else. The Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. And if you say, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and we'll see what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says in a moment, because we're going to cite a brisa where he provides his opinion. Afilu chalanamilo. Even if the person became sick, so he should not be able to appoint somebody else. So we'll see that there's a difference between the second and the third of these two possibilities in a moment. But in any event, we have now a big question. What kind of case are we talking about? So the Tanya, because here's the brisa that provides us with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's viewpoint. Holek get zela ishti. If I tell you to take this get to my wife, then a messenger is allowed to use another messenger. Because again, I didn't specifically say you, but adholek get zela ishti. If I say you take this get to my wife, you can't use another messenger. So we see again, this is very inconsistent with our Mishnah. And again, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, doesn't make a difference what language I use. Whether I said holech, whether I said ad holech, doesn't make a difference. All three, you cannot use one messenger cannot appoint another. So now we're going to offer three answers to this conflict between our Mishnah and the rule that Rav Kahana has set, because Rav Kahana has said that our Mishnah is only talking about somebody who's sick. So how do we understand our Mishnah according to Rav Kahana and the brisa, which seems to not make a big difference about somebody who's sick? It doesn't even mention somebody who gets sick. Okay, it just focuses on the language that the husband used. So three possible answers. So Ibayas Ema, one answer, number one, is we can say that we're talking about where the husband said holech, he just said the word take. He did not specify that it should be this person. And the Hudchala and the Brisa when it says that he's allowed to appoint somebody else, it's because the person got sick. And so so even though the Brisa doesn't mention sickness, we're going to read that into the Brisa. Alternatively, we could say at holech, or we could say that our Mishnah is talking about a case where the person said, you take. And yes, the Brisa doesn't say anything about sickness, but and it says that when you say you take, you cannot appoint an agent according to the Tanakama. But when you become sick, that's different. So in the case where you say holech, you be able to appoint any messenger would be able to appoint another messenger according to the Tanakama. And even if you say ad holech, you'd be allowed to appoint the second messenger if in fact somebody were to be sick. The Ibayasema and third possibility, we could say Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, that in fact our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So in second, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, you're not allowed to ever appoint a second messenger. And again, the Brisa that we just cited is talking about somebody who's healthy. And so as a result, when somebody when the messenger becomes sick, that's going to be a different situation. So we've given three different approaches, but all three allow us to understand the consistency between our Mishnah being like Rav Kahana only by somebody who is sick, and the Brisa being, which doesn't even mention sickness at all. Okay, so Tanan. So now we look at a Mishnah that seems to contradict our Mishnah. So we have in our Mishnah, Hamebi get Be'eretz Yisrael v'chala hareza mishalcha biyad acher. You can go and send the get with somebody else because the first messenger became sick. Uraminu, but one second, we have the following Mishnah. This is a Mishnah that we'll learn in a couple of weeks. It's daf Samech Vav Amud Aleph. Amr l'shnayim. If one says to two people, to new get leishti, go give a get to my wife. O l'shlosha, or you say it to three people, kisvu get utnu leishti, write a get and give it to my wife. Harei elu yichtavu v'yitnu. They should write it and they should give it. What's the implication? In these people are allowed to write it, aval shaliach lo, but not somebody else. So what is so again, that seems to contradict our Mishnah, because our Mishnah said that if somebody became sick, you could go and get another messenger. But here we have people, and there's nobody who they're not allowed to appoint a messenger to write the get. So now, of course, we could answer that, this is talking about where nobody got sick, but I don't think we want to give that answer. I think we were trying to find an answer that is more universal and has the implication and doesn't limit the nature of our Mishnah. So we give two possible answers. First is Abaye, and second is Rava. So Amar Abaye, Hasam, in the Mishnah's case, when where the person was instructed to write a get, time of my mishum b'zayin debal. Why is it that the messengers are not allowed to appoint somebody else to write the get? It's because it's embarrassing to the husband. So what does that mean? So Rashi helps us out. Sha'alav l'chtovet get. This is about just a little bit above halfway down in the narrow lines of Rashi, that in fact, it's on the husband to write the get. And he doesn't want the public to know that he doesn't know how to do that. And so as a result, when he says to somebody that they should write the get for him, he's not interested in them telling somebody else to write the get. He doesn't want that being publicized. But hacha, in our Mishnah, where we're talking about just the delivery of the get, balo kapit, the husband doesn't care if the agent does it himself. He just wants somebody else to deliver the get. As Rashi says, hacha gabi holcha, when he tells somebody to take something, lo kapit, as Rashi says, demai kapida lika. Why should he even care? So bottom line is that in our Mishnah's case, the husband's not going to care. And so as a result, that's why the first messenger is allowed to appoint a second messenger if he gets sick. So now the next answer. So Rava Amar, Rava says, no, it's not about whether or not the husband's going to be embarrassed, but rather it's the nature of the message. It's the nature of the mission. Mishum demili ninhu. When I tell somebody to write a get, I am telling them to do something with words. I'm not telling them to do an action with a thing. So as a result, and umili lo mimsaran l'shliach, and words cannot be transferred to another messenger. As Rashi continues in Rashi, Rava Amar Hasam, over there, when we said that in the Mishnah on Daf Samach Vav, we say Hainu Taima Delo Mashru Shliach Shalom Masar Lahem Ela Dvarim. You've only passed along to them words. V'ein Dvarim Koach Liyot Chosrim B'Nimsarim L'Acher. And the words alone aren't strong enough to pass along as an object of further messaging to another messenger. Aval get, but when it comes to a get, the isbe mashasha, that where there's something to it, you can actually hand a physical item, choser v'nimsar. Well, then you'd be allowed to go and give it to somebody else. So those are the two explanations, and now we want to understand what's the practical ramification between them. So my benayu, what's the difference? So ika benayu, shliach matana. The difference between them is if I wanted to write a gift document. So if I ask somebody to write a gift document, well, according to Abaye, the first answer, of course I can have the messenger can go and ask somebody else to do it, because I don't have any special obligation to write a gift document. Unlike when it comes to a divorce, where the obligation to write is on some level on the husband, here the obligation is not on the person who gives it. Indeed, the halacha is that the recipient of a gift is supposed to pay the fee associated with writing the contract associated with the gift. So, as Rashi details, although we won't go through it inside. Whereas Rava would say, look, what are you asking the messenger to do? You're asking the messenger to do something with words. You don't have any object to give the messenger. And so as a result, because you're not giving the messenger an object, he does not have the ability to appoint somebody else. So again, Rava would say you can't appoint another, whereas Abaye would say you could. All right, Ubepikto de Rav Shmuel. And this machlokas between Rava and Abaye is actually one that Rav and Shmuel had. Because Rav Amar Matana Eina get. Rav says that a gift document is not like a get, in that a gift document, you're allowed to have one person, when you ask one person to write it, that person can pass on that request to somebody else. So that's like Abaye. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, no, Matana Harei Zeh get. Matana, a gift document, and a get are like this each other. Namely, that according to Rava, he says that you're passing along words, and so as a result, just like you can't have the messenger who you appoint to write a get ask that somebody else to write the get. Similarly, with a gift document, the person that you ask to write the gift document can't go ahead and write the gift document. Can't go ahead and ask somebody else to write the gift document in his stead. Okay, so now that we've got that understanding, the Gemara turns to the last line of our Mishnah. V'im amarlo toli hemenu chayfetz ploni, right? The man says that he wants something to be brought back. So Amar Reish Lakish, kan shana Rebbe, that from this, Rebbe taught the following halacha. Ein hashol rashai lahashil. If you borrow something, you cannot lend it out to somebody else. V'ein hasocher rashai lahaskiro. And if you rent something, you can't rent it out to somebody else, because just because the person who lent it to you was willing to lend the object to you doesn't mean that they're willing to lend the object to the other person. And just because they rented the object to you doesn't mean they're willing to rent the object to the other person. You need the owner's permission. So Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan says to him, well, 1 second, to no coat. I'm sorry, I realized it didn't scroll. There we go. So Rabbi Yochanan says to him, no, Tinokot shel beis Rabban Yodin ota. Every school child knows what you're saying, meaning we all have this sense of appropriate justice that tells us that, listen, I borrowed it from you. You trusted me. You did not trust somebody else. And so as a result, I cannot lend it or rent it to somebody else. But Ella Zimnin de Gita Nami Lohavi. What Rebbe is trying to tell us is that when we have this kind of situation, you could end up with the get being invalid. Okay, and how is that? Denase Kamisha Amar, that it low, because it's just like a husband who says to the messenger, Al Tigarsha El Babayit, only divorce her when you're inside the house, the Gersha Ba'aliyah. And then if the guy instead divorced her in the upper floor, in the attic, that's not considered part of the house. And so as a result, it's not a good get. Ella Biyamin, or if I say that you divorce her using your right hand, but the Gersha Bismol, and you divorced her with her left hand, in both of those cases, it's not going to be a good get, as Rashi explains. The Kuli Alma, so as a result, we now have these two viewpoints. Now, the Gemara is going to explain, really, there's the difference is the following. The Kuli Alma, everybody agrees, that when the woman, went to the second agent, the second messenger, and the woman gave the object that the man was supposed to bring back, the messenger was supposed to bring back, and then she takes the get from the guy. Everybody agrees the Gita Ma'al Yahavi, that in that situation it is a valid get. So again, the situation is messenger number one receives the get. He's supposed to bring back some object, let's say a watch, from the wife. And so if the wife gives the man the watch before the man gives the wife, the messenger gives the wife the get, well, then everything is fine. It's a valid get, even if the first messenger appointed a second messenger. Ki pligi, where do they argue? Where does Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish argue? Heka de Amarlai, where the husband said the following: Go mina chavetz, go take the object, v'hadar havla gita, and only then give it to her. V'azal ihu v'yav legittel v'hagita v'hadar shakal mina chavetz, and the woman and the messenger, excuse me, first gave the get and only then took the object. So the husband had said, you have to take the object before you give the get, meaning I don't want you to leave without the object. But the guy was willing to give the get before he got the object. The messenger was willing to give the get before the messenger got the object. So in that situation, Rabbi Yochanan Poselbo, Rabbi Yochanan would say that is invalid whether the messenger was the first guy, and certainly whether the messenger was the second guy, his agent that he wasn't supposed to appoint. But Reish Lakish machshir b'shlucho v'kol shekain bo. Whereas Reish Lakish says, listen, when the husband says that, he is not intending to be specific. He is flexible. He does not actually mean that it's only conditioned on his getting the object first. The key is that he gets the object back. And in both cases, he's gotten the object back. So, Tosos, let's take a look quickly at Rashi and at Tosos. So Rashi says, "Va'azal ihu v'yav lagita." So Bereisha, in the first case, the ki amar le shkol chayfetz Bereisha, where he says to take the object beginning kapid ihu. So he is being makbid, he is being specific. He wants it done this particular way. Shahaya bedaito la'ake haget im lo titin lo achefetz l'redosa beiguna. He's willing to put her in an igun state, a state of an aguna, if she doesn't give back the object. Ad shetitin until she gives it back to him. Hilkach haget tala bechefet. B'davar zeh. So yes, and so as a result, it's conditioned on getting the object back. V'zeh imshina nasa, and so now if this person changes what he's supposed to do, Kamisha Amar Lo, Alter Gershenu El B'Bayit V'Gershenu Ba'aliyah. It's as if he violated the rule about divorcing her in the house and he divorced her in the attic. Meaning, again, you have to do what you're supposed to do. You can't change your agency. So Hilkach Rabbi Yochanan Posel Bo B'Shliach Rishon B'Kol Shekain B'Shluko. So as a result, Rabbi Yochanan would say that that's not a valid get, whether it's the first messenger or the second messenger. V'hainu dekamer zimnin degita nami lo havi. And this is his point when he says that sometimes it won't even be a valid get. Hilkach Tana b'misnisin, and this is why we learned in our Mishnah, lo yishalchenu b'yad acher. Don't use somebody else. Why shouldn't you somebody else? Because Shema Kishiyimsar Rishon L'Shlichos L'Sheni. Because maybe when the first messenger tells the second messenger, Lo Yimsar Lo Dvarim Kehaviyasan, he won't necessarily convey the words as they were originally conveyed. And so as a result, Hasheni Lo Yidaktek Behen, or the second messenger won't be careful about them. V'Yehei Mishaneh, he'll change things up. Umifsal Gita, and the get will be puzzle. So as a result, now we understand Rabbi Yochanan's approach. The Reish Lakish Machshir, and Reish Lakish says no, the whole thing's fine, it's kosher. Why? Kasaver Lav Peda. Who the husband doesn't really care about this. Ela Orcha de Milsa Kamerle. He's just speaking in a usual manner, but he's not making the get contingent on getting back that watch. Okay, so that's Rashi. Now Tosos has the following point, because mashma, all of this implies data shehikpid al lekichas hachefet, that whether you're talking about according to Rabbi Yochanan or according to Reish Lakish, if in fact the husband were to say, and I mean that this should only be a good get if I get the watch back, well then everybody would agree that he needs to get the watch back. So tchila, it's only if he says that at the very beginning, pligi, that they argue. Aval havla gita, if he v'shakol mina chayfetz, but if he were to just say, give her the get and get back my watch, lo, then everybody would agree that it's a valid get and it doesn't make a difference whether or not you get back the watch. But that's doesn't make sense, because what about the Perika Kosef in Mesechas Ksuvot? So we learned several Mesechtot ago. Amrinan deloshna. Amrle shkol shtara v'havli zuze v'loshna amrle havli zuze v'shkol shtara. If I owe you money and I say, listen, bring the $100 to Stan, and when you go to Stan, make sure you get back my IOU that he's holding. It doesn't make a difference whether I tell you give the money to Stan and get back my IOU, or I say get back my IOU and give the money to Stan. In both cases, we say you need to get it. Right? So to Amrle l'tikuni shidarticha, because I can tell you, the messenger, listen, I sent you to fix things. Below lavuze, and I didn't want you to mess things up. Kavan shehizkir l'kichas hashtar. And so once I tell you that you need to get back that contract, even if I say it second, it doesn't make a difference. You need to get back that contract. And only then will you have fulfilled your obligation as the messenger. The Yesh Lomar. So how come in this case it does matter which you say first and which you say second? So we can say the shiny hasam, that case is different. Shapiron hamos tuluyin bishtar, because the paying of the money is conditioned on the contract, meaning your entire proof that I owe you money is in this contract. And once I've referenced the giving of the star, or the getting of the star to my messenger, Gali Daite, I've revealed my intention, Shiyare, that I'm afraid, Shalo Yomru Sitraininu, I'm worried that the lender, my lender, will say, oh, that money that you just gave me, that money was for a different thing that David Schwartz owed. And so as a result, he won't give back the IOU. And as a result, I will still end up owing him, and he'll still have proof that I owe him money. And so as a result, that's why in connection with money, we're going to say that it doesn't make a difference. Clearly, once I mentioned getting back the contract, I mean that I need the contract back, and you've only done the shlichut, you've only done the messenger service if you get back the contract. But here, where it's not as dependent and there's no additional fees that are associated with it. So then as a result, we're not going to say the same rule. And that's why the rules can be different in these two situations. So that brings us to the next Mishnah. And again, this is the Mishnah that's a pair of the previous Mishnah, but now we talk about maybe get min Medina Sayyam, somebody who brings a get from overseas. And so as a result, because the person is the first messenger, that first messenger needs to be able to say b'fani nektam, b'fani nektam, and now he got sick. So so he can go to the Beis Din, to any Beis Din, and in that Beis Din, they will send him. They'll appoint another shliach and then send that person out. But Omar lifneihem, and the first agent will say in front of the Beis Din, b'fanei nektam, b'fanei nektam. They'll say that it was written and signed in front of them. The ein shliach achron sarach sheyomer b'fanei nektam, b'fanei nektam. And so as a result, the second shliach won't need to say it was written and signed in front of me. Ella Omer shliach Beis Din ani. All they'll have to say is that they are the shliach of Beis Din. Oh boy, sorry for not scrolling. Oh boy, and I see how late it's gotten. All right, we'll see whether I'm not going to finish everything we were going to try and finish today, so we'll get as far as we can, and we'll go from there. Okay, so Amrulay Rabbanan Lavim. So all you need to say is that you're the shliach of Beis Din. And so what does that mean? So Rashi, take a look at the last Rashi on the Mishnah. Umistama, and the implication will be Beis Din asu hadavar behakshiro. That the Beis Din knew what it was doing and made the whole situation so it's kosher. So as a result, the point is, by being able to point to a specific Beis Din in which the second messenger has been appointed, we no longer will need the statement of b'fanei nektam, b'fanei nektam. Okay, so Amrulay Rabbanan Lavimi Brei de Rabbi Abahu by Rabbi Abahu. So there was a question that was asked of Rabbi Abahu, shliach to shliach. Can the first messenger appoint the second messenger, or rather appoint a third messenger? So we had the first messenger appoint the second messenger, but what about this second messenger? Is he allowed to mashavi shliach olo? Is he allowed to appoint a third messenger or not? So Amr lahu halo tzibai lahu. That's not really the question that you should be asking, because midikatani eina shliach ha'achron, that we reference that the last shliach, doesn't need to say b'fanei nektam, b'fanei nektam. Rather, he just says it was written that I'm the agent of the court. So miklal the mashvik shliach. So that implies that the second shliach is also allowed to appoint a further messenger. So elakiti vaylucho, what's the question? Ki mashvik shliach. When the appointment of the shliach happens, Beis Din or afila shelo Beis Din. When the third one happens, third messenger is appointed, does that have to happen in the court or outside the court? So Amrulay, they said to him, well, 1 second, that seems obvious, because look, Hi Lomi Bailach Lan. That also doesn't have to be asked, because Mikadatani, what does the end of our Mishnah say? Ella Omer Shliach Beis Din Ani. He just needs to say that I am the agent of court. Well, if the second messenger can appoint the third messenger without saying, without it being in court, well, then is that third messenger going to be able to say that he's a messenger of a court? He's not. So as a result, it shows that every additional messenger needs to be appointed in court. So now we're going to have the exact same story, just reversed. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Masnei Hachi. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak taught it this way: Amrulei Rabbanan Lavimi Berei to Rabbi Abahu. By name Rabbi Abahu. Shliach to shliach kin mashri shliach bebeis din o shelo bebeis din. When the second messenger appoints the third messenger, does he have to do it in court, or can he do it even outside of court? So Amr lahu tzibay lahu. 1 second. What do you mean? You should ask the following question: Imashri shliach ba'alma. Can he even do it at all? So Amr lei. We don't have to ask that question, because it's not ein shliach agron. We specifically reference a last shliach, miklal shliach mashri shliach. That implies that there could be another round of messengers. Elaki kami bailan bebeis din o shelo bebeis din. So that's why we asked, does it have to be in Beis Din or not in Beis Din? Well, Amar lahu. So Avimi said back to them, no, hanami lo tipai lahu. If you're reading the Mishnah so carefully, you don't have to ask that question either, because the Katani, because we have in our Mishnah, Ella Omer Shliach Beis Din, Shliach Beis Din ani, because the person will end up saying, even the last messenger will have to be able to say that he is a Shliach of the court, and the only way you could do that is if in fact he gets appointed in the court. Okay, so Amar Rabba. So now the court is going to wonder about what happens if the one of the messengers dies. Does that impact the rest of the messengers? So we'll deal with that, and then we'll pause for the day. So Amar Rabba Shliach be'Eretz Yisrael Osek Kama Shluchin. A messenger who's delivering within Eretz Yisrael can appoint several agents. Again, we saw that was the two Mishnayos ago. That wasn't the most recent Mishnah. That an agent in Eretz Yisrael is allowed to appoint another agent. So Amar Rav Ashi in Meis Rishon, but if the first agent dies before the get gets delivered, but Lukulan, they all get revoked. So Amar Marbar Rav Ashi, Marbar Rav Ashi says, 1 second, I don't know about that. That doesn't sound right. Hada Abba de Katunusahi, that which my father said, because this was being quoted in Rav Ashi's name, and this is Mar, his son. So that was when he was young. And Rashi points out that he was, it wasn't a well-defined statement that had, because you can respond to it. And what's the response? Ilu meis baal, when the husband dies, midi mashasha isbahu, does there any substance left to what the messengers are doing? No, of course not. So as a result, the get is not valid. But so kula mikoach man kasu. So all of the agents are clearly deriving their power mikoach devald kasu. It's all derived from the husband. So isi lebal is nehu kulu. So as long as the husband's alive, they all have the power. So leisi lebal, leis molekulu. Once the husband's not alive, none of them have power. So the bottom line is that when one messenger dies, it's not going to impact later messengers. But if the husband dies, of course, the woman can no longer be divorced. All right, so let me just see if this is let's see if we can get a little bit further. So Ahu Gavra. So now we're going to tell a related story. So the Shadar Le Gita de Bisu. So he was sending a get to his wife. So Amar Shliach, the Shliach said, Lo Yadanala, I don't know your wife, so I'm not going to be able to give it to her. So Amar Le, so the husband said, Zil Yahave la Abba Bar Menyumi. So go give it to Abba Bar Menyumi, to Ihu Yadala, because he knows her, the Leza Velisve Nahala, and he'll be able to give it to her. So Asa below Ashkecha la Abba Bar Menyumi. So now the question is, the first messenger did not find Abba Bar Menyumi, but Ashkecha la Rabbi Abahu Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka. But he did find three people, Rabbi Abahu, Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa, and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka. They were all sitting as a court. The Yosef Rav Safra Gabayu, and Rav Safra was sitting along with them. So Amrulay, so he said to them, so they said to him, Masur Milach. Kamei Didan, give us the message. The Chiyesi Abba Bar Menyumi Nisvene Le, and then when Abba Bar Menyumi comes, we'll give it to him. Veleza V'liyasvine Le, and then he'll give it to her, and everything will be fine. Well, Amar Lahu Rav Safra pointed out and said, 1 second, is that really okay? Are we allowed to do that? Maybe not, because V'hash Shaliach Shalom Nitin Legerishinhu. In the end, right, in the end of what of what the husband said to the messenger is not in fact actually going to be a messenger for the divorce. He is just a messenger between the husband and Abba Bar Menyumi. And so maybe he doesn't have the power to give this get to you, the court, in order for you to give it to Abba Bar Menyumi. Maybe he was given only the power, and he has to do exactly what he was told. So ichsufu. So the rabbis felt a little bit embarrassed because it seems like they thought that Rav Safra had found a problem with what they said. Well, Amar Rava said, no, it's not true. Kavchinu Rav Safra l'tlaso rabbanan smuche. Oh, I'm sorry. And Rava says, yeah, and it looks like the Rav Safra has actually undercut the three rabbis. So Amar Rav Ashi says, 1 second, but my kafchina, in what way do you think that Rav Safra undercut them? Because in fact, that's not a valid objection. Mika Amrle Abba Bar Menyumi below at. Did the person say that when you need to give the get to Abba Bar Menyumi, it's only to Abba Bar Menyumi and not another court? No. The whole purpose of mentioning Abba Bar Menyumi is in order to make sure that the get got delivered to the right wife and not to somebody else. And so as a result, when they said Abba Bar Menyumi, it wasn't meant to be specific. And so as a result, Rav Safra's comment, although a worthwhile note, is not actually something to be for the other rabbis to be embarrassed about, because they were allowed to accept it. So Ika da Amri, alternatively, we can reverse the conversation. And again, Rava was the one who said that there was an undercutting, and Rav Ashi defended, and we're going to reverse things now. So Ika da Amri, Amar Rava, Kafchino Rav Safra, Litlasa Rava Smuche B'Tausa. Again, it seems like Rava says that that Rav Safra undercut the three rabbis. So I'm sorry, B'Tausa. Now he's saying that they really did not undercut the three rabbis. So Rava's statement is reversed. So Amar Rav Ashi says, no, what do you mean? My Ta'usa. Rav Safra didn't make a mistake. Maika Amrlay, what did the husband tell to the first messenger? Abba Bar Menyuma below At. He told them Abba Bar Menyumi and not you. So we actually have a machlokus between the two different viewpoints. In the first approach, when we understand that the husband was telling the first messenger that you don't have to just give it to Abba Bar Menyumi, but rather you need to accomplish my goal of getting it to my wife, and Abba Bar Menyumi is just the method for doing that. But in the second, we're understanding that when he said Abba Bar Menyumi, he meant specifically Abba Bar Menyumi. So all right, so those are the two situations, and we'll see, and the point is that we're going to have to figure out. So now, we'll see exactly, what. So we'll see. So now we have these two different viewpoints as to how one might view the statement where the first messenger doesn't know the wife, and the husband says, okay, so give it to somebody else. Is that intended to be specific, or is it not? Now we're going to continue, God willing, tomorrow with additional situations where an agent designating somebody else in their place. And so we'll pick up, God willing, from here. I'm sorry I didn't get anywhere near as far as I had hoped to get, God willing, tomorrow. So again, we're going to have some statements where the question is what happens about the death of one of the messengers.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day, all.
Have a great day, everybody.
Have a good day.